Hello everyone, welcome aboard. So again, we have brought you the next session of the daily current affairs, and today we will be discussing about the current affairs of 4th of October. Okay, and this session has been brought to you by Himalaya IS classes. So let's get started. So the very first item today that is related to art and culture, and it is part of GS paper 1. Okay, it's about Chola temple inscriptions. So Chola era inscriptions are there in Thenari village in Kanchipuram district of Tamil Nadu. Okay, it is on the walls of Kanthaleshwara temple. See, Chola administration is very famous for rural local bodies. Okay, they had very good system of local self government. Okay, so there are certain terms sometimes which are asked in the prelims examination. So, for example, Kuda Volai is a system to elect annual committees. There were committees for different things like committee for garden management, committee for tank management. Okay, Variam was the name of annual committee. So, Kuda Volai is system of election. Variam is the name of the annual committee. There was an administrative committee as well, which has been mentioned in the inscription. That is Perum Kuri Sakai. Okay, the inscription also lays down the qualification for candidates of annual committee, like what should be the conditions for the people who will get selected or elected as a candidates in these committees. What are those? Like they should own a land, they should not have any criminal cases pending against them, they should be highly educated and should have maintained accounts, means their finances should be in order. So see, even now, like you have members of parliament or for various key post, you have certain qualifications. So that system was very well established in the Chola administrative system. So please do remember the inscription, what does it tells. The next article, it's a really good article about the reimagining food system. Food system means from farm to plate, how do you get your food? That is called a food system, with lessons from India. What are the lessons that can be taken from India for tackling the global challenges related to food like hunger? Okay, this all outcome comes from this United Nations Food Security Summit, which has happened in New York. So this is a prelims question. You can remember that. Issues related to poverty and hunger. Again, GS paper 2 in the mains examination. So food system transformation is essential in achieving the sustainable development goals. So 11 out of 17 goals are directly related to the food system. For example, SDG 1, it's about no poverty. SDG 2 is about zero hunger. Now, see, hunger was already a problem, but this COVID-19 pandemic, it has increased this problem. See guys, this article or this particular discussions in the next 4 to 5 slides, it is going to give you great information about this hunger issue. And trust me, during your journey of UPSC, you are going to find this topic again and again in various papers. Okay, so just try to take as many points as possible from this discussion. This article or this summit, basically the discussion was how to reform this global food system. Okay, what is global food system? Networks which are producing food, means starting from the seed till the food comes to your plate, each and everything, it forms a global food system. Now this COVID-19 pandemic has increased the hunger. Who it affects? It affects severely the poor and vulnerable section of the society. The people who are already facing many problems, they are the worst affected by this challenge. 5 action tracks were discussed, like what can be done to address the problem of hunger. So first thing is, and at the global level, first thing is we should try to provide access to safe and nutritious food patterns to everyone. We must shift to sustainable consumption patterns, means which can we continue for a long run. We should try to boost nature's positive production, and we should try to advance equitable livelihood so that everybody has some income, so that they are not facing challenges of hunger. And we must try to build resilience to vulnerability, like there are a lot of climate vulnerabilities, disaster related vulnerabilities, which so that if something happens, then also we have access to the food. Next is what we can learn from India's story in managing hunger. So see, we are a country who went from food shortage to food security. Okay. So if you remember the year of 1960s, 1962, we had a war with China. 1965, we had a war with Pakistan. And during that time, when Lal Bahadur Shastri ji was the Prime Minister of India, he gave a slogan called Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. Okay. Why this? Because you were having two wars. That was UPSC mains question. That's why, what was the need of the defense or importance of the defense? And we were facing acute food shortage problem. So Jai Kisan tells us the significance of farmers in that. So during 60s, we were actually importing food from United States to India. Okay. But we actually became a surplus country. Now, after Green Revolution and other reforms, what are those reforms? What we did? We did land reforms. It's a direct topic from GS paper 3. You'll be reading about it in economy. Public investment, money spent by the government in the agricultural sector. Institutional infrastructure, the infrastructure which we provided to help this. New regulatory system, like Food Corporation of India, APMC market regime. Now we are coming with the new farm laws. Public support, the participation of the people. Intervention in agri markets, so that the interest of consumers as well as the farmers can be protected. Agri research and extension means uh, teaching them the new skills and technology which they can utilize. These were the steps which were taken by India, which has made us, okay, a surplus country. And these things can be even utilized by other developing countries. Okay. What else we can do? We can diversify our crops, not just going for monocropping, not just sowing wheat and rice, and even diversification of livelihood. Don't just provide livelihood from the production of cereal crops. You would have seen National Horticulture Mission, National Bamboo Mission. There are various other means which government is trying to give to the farmers. If they don't rely on one thing, you would have heard the saying, don't keep all your eggs in one basket. If you diversify it, the risk will reduce, right? You must try to use technology as much as possible. These are the steps which can help the whole world, and which India has done uh, to solve the problem of hunger. Again, another step was National Food Security Act, NFSM, of 2013. Very, very important. It brought targeted public distribution system, where the most vulnerable sections of the society, they are identified and they are given highly subsidized food. We have integrated child development system, where nutritional support is provided to the kids. India's food safety net collectively reaches 1 billion people. Okay, it's a big number. Now, food safety nets and inclusion are linked with public procurement. Public procurement, see, the main challenge is if you leave farmers to the mercy of private companies, they will not get too much money, right? They cannot fight their tactics. So public procurement is government announce an MSP, and at that it promises farmers that we'll buy your food at this price. Plus there is a buffer stock policy. We will buy food and we will store it for the emergency times, so that if any issues like COVID-19 pandemic comes, you have Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, which supplies the food to the people. Next is climate change and unsustainable use of land and water resources are formidable challenges. Even in India, climate is changing. So let's say rain pattern will change. So half of our area, which depends on rain for irrigation problem, that will create a problem. Then unsustainable use of land, its fertility will go away. Then what will happen? Again, we'll face the problem. Unsustainable use of water resources. Already there is, problem or scarcity of water we have started facing. So these are the challenges which not just in India, whole world has to address now. Dietary diversity means adding more items of food and nutritional value to your food basket. Nutrition and related health outcomes are concerns, as focus is on rice and wheat. See, only by increasing the production of rice and wheat and selling that into the market, it's going to cause not just health but economic problem as well. So for that, we can also add on something called food fortification. What is food fortification? Or it is also called as biofortification. That let's say rice is there, you add certain nutritious like vitamin A or vitamin B to it. You create such a variety of rice which has the additional, add-on nutrients. Now, there is a paradoxical situation in India. So till now in this article, we have seen that, see, hunger is a problem. There are global challenges. What we can learn from India. And now we are talking about what is the paradoxical situation in India. See, from a food shortage country, we have become a food surplus country, but still we face the challenges of nutrition. We are sending food to other countries, but still 50% higher prevalence of undernutrition, means our own people, they have enough food, but they are not getting proper nutrition. So proportion of undernourished population, it has declined, but yet it's a huge number. So some steps have been taken by the government for that. For example, the fortified rice, as I told you, now adding some additional nutrients or vitamins into the crops. They are being supplied to the vulnerable sections of the society under PDS scheme, public distribution system, or TPDS, what we saw in the earlier slide. Also, there is a Poshan Abhiyan, National Nutrition Mission, where the nutritional support is being given to the mother and the children. Okay, what can be the way forward for India to address these problems? See, one of the major challenges, we waste a lot of food during storage process and all. So we have to reduce the food wastage. Hunger and insecurity, they are the key drivers of conflict and instability. That is why you see, if you solve this problem, it's not just you are solving the problem, health problem of malnutrition. You are solving many other social as well as economic problems as well. So the significance of this you can understand by this example. And again, it's a feeder point for prelims for you. Nobel Peace Prize of 2020 was awarded to United Nations World Food Program, UNWFP. Okay, and food is the best vaccine against any type of chaos. So these are the points, some for prelims, some for mains, which you can use in your answers in GS paper 2, or you can utilize it even in your essay points when you are talking. Okay, moving to the next. Our economy is showing the symptoms of tentative recovery. How it talks about the index of 8 core industry that has improved, and purchasing managers index, which I have told you in the last lecture as well, that has improved. So for our economy portion in the manufacturing, there are 8 core industries. You must know all of them. Who has the highest weightage? We have seen prelims question coming out of it, like which of these are part of 8 core industries. They can ask you, out of these, which has the highest percentage in the index of 8 core industries. So see, coal, natural gas, crude oil, petroleum refinery, fertilizers, steel. Okay, see, petroleum refinery product, they account for 28.04% weightage in the index of 8 core industries. Do remember that. And you have to remember all of these. So these are 3 plus 3, 6, and the remaining 2 are cement and electricity generation. So crude is 28%, that's the highest, and next highest in 8 core industries is electricity. Now they found the core of the manufacturing sector, that's why they are called as core industries. Okay, now purchasing manager index, that's another area. I have discussed it one of the last lecture as well. See, it tells us like how much manufacturing activity is increasing. If the score is greater than 100, it's increasing. Greater than 50 and increasing, that means there is expansion. Less than 50 means contraction. Equal to 50 means that is equal. There is no change in the manufacturing activities. Moving to the next article, it's about NS2, Nordic Stream 2. Okay, so for us, again, it's a prelims topic. Like, see, Nordic Stream 2, it's a pipeline which has been created between Russia and Germany, bypassing Ukraine. From the international relations point of view, you must know that, see, earlier Russia was sending natural gas to European countries via Ukraine. Ukraine was getting a tax on it. So that was way of earning money. Now they have created a direct link, so they can bypass Ukraine. So Ukraine is not very happy about it. And this is what you must remember. This is the, see, this is NS1. Okay. And the next line is NS2. This goes from Baltic Sea, from Russia, St. Petersburg to Germany. So do remember that NS2 is the gas pipeline which has been developed between Germany and Russia. Next article is about the education and what it can contribute to the peace. So if you know the syllabus of ethics, GS paper 4, there it says like what is the role of the education in the development of any individual. So from that angle, let's take a look. For prelims, just remember this point: Pathway for Peace Report 2018 that has been published by World Bank and United Nations. To remember this, conflict arises out of exclusion. When you leave out people from the benefits and feelings of injustice, when they feel that the world is not fair to them, what can be the solution of conflict or violence? That can be education. Education gives us values. What is values? Values are preferences. So like what we prefer in life, that is called value. You prefer to tell the truth or you prefer to tell a lie. You prefer to go for a morning walk or you prefer to keep sleeping in the morning. So that's whatever you prefer in life, that is your value. And skills, and both of these things comes from the education. They are necessary for preventing conflicts and promoting tolerance in the society. Preventing war is the work of politicians. Politicians can decide like, okay, they have to avoid war, but establishing peace in the world is the work of educationalists. So when people are educated, they have the values, they have the feeling of tolerance, then they can contribute towards the goal of peace in the world. Now, NEP 2020, it has also focused on the value-based education for everyone. So these are the points you can use in your ethics paper as well when you'll be reading about education. Next article today, it talks about NIA, National Investigation Agency. It has searched the premise of cross LOC traders. So in GS paper 3, there is a topic of internal security where there is a topic of link of terrorism with organized crime. And this is a National Investigation Agency. It was created to tackle the terrorist operations as itself. So we must know about NIA. Okay, so the cases are assigned to National Investigation Agency by central government, and it's a statutory body which has been created under NIA Act. What is a statutory body? A statutory body is something which has been created by an act of parliament. The investigation of cases is done independently by agency. After investigation, the cases are placed before NIA special court. For prosecuting accused under UPA Act, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, and certain other scheduled offenses, agency seeks the sanction of central government. Okay, so basically it is related with the terror-based crime. See, NIA was created after 2008 Mumbai terror attacks. See, we have law and order as a state subject. So different state government has different police systems, and coordination becomes very difficult. That's why we have created an All India agency, although it's not a state subject, but we have created with a special act an All India agency which can coordinate the activities for stopping the terrorist activities. Moving to the next, Chinese transgressions are testing India, says official. So basically, continuously in every lecture, past lecture, we have seen that there is some tension going on between India and China. But this article talks about a specific point. See, the China border, India-China border is patrolled by ITBP, Indo-Tibetan Border Police. Okay, but whenever there is some such tense situation, then it's not a PLA, it has to be Indian Army. But wherever there is a tense situation, Army is placed on those areas. Now, these are two different agencies. ITBP, it reports to Ministry of Home Affairs. Indian Army, it comes under Ministry of Defense. So there is a challenge of coordination. Recently, we have seen Barahuti. It's a place in Uttarakhand. Just take a look in the map. This is India, this is Uttarakhand, and here in Uttarakhand, if you see India-China border, this is the Barahuti area where Chinese have done incursions, or they have came inside Indian border. So for such a situation, we have to have better coordination between these two units. Can we give control of ITBP to Army? It's not possible. It's a paramilitary force and it has been assigned to Ministry of Home Affairs. So dual control between these two is causing a problem. Also, Chinese have placed a surveillance equipment at Kyodhure Pass as well. So see, Chinese aggression or activities are increasing in the area. So whatever resources we have, like Army and ITBP at the India-China border, we must try to coordinate and try to go for optimum use of their potentials. Last article of today, it talks about North Korea has threatened United Nations Security Council after emergency meet. See what happened in UNSC meet. There was a proposal by France saying that we should completely ban all the ballistic missile related activity of North Korea. What North Korea is saying that, See, we are already having conditional talks with South Korea for peace, and UNSC never goes against developed countries' missile programs, which is in a sense true. Like against America, Russia, or any other country, North Korea, UNSC never gives a resolution or something. So why it's only about one country we are trying to do this? Okay, so there's not much, but from the mains point of view, in the international relations topic of GS paper T2, you can understand that all the developing countries are not happy the way UN system works, and that's why India has been calling for reforms in the United Nations system, or especially in the United Nations Security Council. So that was all for today's topic, guys. Hope all of you have liked the session. Please do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video, and let me know in the comment section like what do you feel about it. And we'll see you all soon with the next lecture tomorrow. So thanks for watching. Thanks a lot.